Welcome to Connecting Startup Cities Startup Stories session. Now we would like to go into the panel discussion. First, I would like to introduce to you all our panelists. I introduced Sophie already, and I haven't seen new people coming in, so if it's okay, I might skip Sophie's introduction and go straight to the introduction of Ikuo. Ikuo Hiraishi has been involved in the internet-related business since the late 1990s, and he has participated in the setup of WebCrew, a Japanese company. And in 2000, Ikuo has co-founded and became the CEO of Interscope, an internet research company that he has sold to Yahoo Japan at that time. And in 2011, he became the Tokyo officer of Sunbridge, an investment firm. And after that, he has launched also a pitch event for startups in not only in Japan, but also in Europe, in Israel, and you were also in Berlin, yes. And in 2012, Ikuo has co-founded in 2012, Sunbridge Global Ventures, and also become and was the CEO of the company until he founded Dreamvision, which is your current company now.
We are running out of time.
Okay. Next is Emon Wang. Emon Wang is general manager at TechCode Germany that aims to build a global ecosystem for startups with focus on China. And TechCode has co-working spaces in offices in Berlin, but also worldwide. And TechCode offers global tech startups a platform to enter the Chinese market. And Alexander Jensen is a serial entrepreneur, a mentor, and a professional consultant for startups who aim to bring the agile spirit to Asia. Alexander was trained as a pianist and a film score composer, and is an experienced agile coach. Alex applies his out-of-the-box thinking on coaching and mentoring startups across Asia, as well as leading agile innovation among international corporations in the region. And Alexander is the founder of Doto. It's a boutique consulting company that provides leadership training, coaching, especially in agile innovation environments across Europe and Asia. Okay, so please welcome all our panelists. So I would like to start with the first question. Please excuse me that I'm going to read from my phone. Being a Berlin startup or a company operating from Berlin, what were the perceived barriers and the actual challenges you have faced when entering a new market in Asia? First, I would like to ask Sophie. I'm sure there are many technical challenges that are involved in accessing the Asian markets, but what were the major obstacles that you have faced?
Yeah, so since we're in healthcare, a big goal for us is to build trust through our product, right? And trust you build through communication. So every time we would enter a new market, we couldn't apply all the learnings we would generate in one market and just put it into the next market. We had to actually go and understand who is the patient, how do they communicate, what are the trust elements that they're looking for in order to be able to actually be successful in each of those markets. So for us, it was really, each market was quite different in terms of how we would have to communicate to our customer audience.
Okay, thank you. Now, Ikuo, Infarm is, Infarm is one of your portfolio companies from Berlin. We had a presentation from Infarm rep today, and now I understand that Infarm is also trying to expand to Japan and South Korea, right?
Yes.
In Asia. What have been, or do you think are going to be the major challenges for Infarm to set foot in Japan, and how do you think can you contribute or help Infarm to expand there?
Actually, this is a very good question, but difficult to answer because it's very complicated. So I don't know anything about the South Korea, but in terms of Japan, the business culture is entirely different from the Germany, France, UK, Switzerland, etc. So I don't know how further I can talk about, because something going to reach to the NDA kind of thing. But most of the countries outside of the Germany, the Infam has developed the subsidiary, 100% subsidiary. But in Japan, I recommended the founders to set up the joint venture with the local business partners, also the investors, because Japan is a homogeneous country, and we are speaking a very weird language, so-called the Japanese. Only 100 million people spoken, so very hard to get into the society. And as Sophie mentioned, how we could build the trust. And so historically, Japan has been familiar with the U.S. Not only big corporations, also startups, because in Japan, if we say startups, it almost equal to the IT-related startups, like Google, Facebook, whatever, Silicon Valley. So everyone is interested in the startups in the United States, especially Silicon Valley. But almost no one knows and not really interested in the startups in European countries. So that's why if Infam doesn't have any local investors and business partners, I don't think that they're going to be successful.
Okay, so it's great that they have you in Tokyo.
So actually, I have been acting as a kind of country manager in addition to the just a shareholder.
All right, investor and
country manager. We have
manager.
not yet established any local entity. So that's why they kept me back and forth between Berlin and Tokyo. Okay. So third time this year to Berlin, actually.
Right. Okay, thank you. Now, Emon, as an accelerator based in Berlin, who brings German startups, who accompanies German startups to China, can you share your experiences about this journey of German startups going to China, what the challenges are, and also whether the new generations of startups also learn from the experiences that the first ones who went to China made?
So exactly, this is what TechCode has been doing. One of the reasons that why we established this platform to bring European or specifically more Berlin founders to the Chinese market. But I think the biggest thing that we realize is the difference in the speed, because this is really painful for us sometimes. The European startups or the German founders are really slow on the move to make a very big strategic decision, for example, to set up a legal entity in Asia country where they don't understand the legal framework, they don't know anyone. So this decision is can really take some time. For example, we have been talking to one very good technology startup from Berlin region who wanted to enter the Chinese market. I think back in 2017. That's when we were first talking about this idea. They want to, we want to go to China, we want to go for the market. And guess what? They are making their first trip to Asia this year. So it's like already 2 years past. I need to read their business plan again because the market situation has been changed. I think it's similar also in other Asian countries. The speed is really fast. So one business idea which might be valid, I mean, in this quarter or in this month, but the situation can be changing very fast. So speed is really like the most important thing that we need to think. I mean, not only for China, I think, Singapore, Japan, Korea is also. So here in Europe, I think it's more relaxed. The community is also not like in Silicon Valley. That's also more speedy. But here it's more slow, taking back, you develop your product, you polish it, and you come to your perfect product, and then you go to the market. But that's definitely too late for market like China, India, which is moving so fast.
So there's obviously not only different time zones, but also a different speed of time in Europe and Asia. Now, Alexander, you have corporate companies as clients and in Europe, and I'm sure you also advise them about the fast-paced Southeast Asian market.
Yeah, actually, I could like totally sign off of everything you said. So the speed is different. You have to learn about the market before you go, and I can share a small story that if you're a startup, you have an advantages in this because you don't have a 2-year-long process as a corporate to go into a new market that moves away while you're doing it. So, and we've worked with a company you all know, and I got clearance to tell you this. So usually I have NDAs, but this I actually cleared off. So if you work for that company, it's all fine. I got clearance. So the company is called Daimler. It's the company behind Mercedes-Benz. And their finance division wanted to go to the Vietnamese market. So also new market entry. And usually this is a process that is only focused on the inside. So you have 2 years of due diligence and setting up an entity and all that. And they decided, what if the Vietnamese market changes in the 2 years we are busy doing this? So how can we use something else? So we started a team. There were 9 people. 3 of them were actually Vietnamese from the market. So they also bridged the cultural gap. They were the translators for everything. That team went to Vietnam a few times and spoke to customers, tried a few things, learned a lot. And then within 13 weeks, they made 6-figure revenues. With prototyping, with trying things, with throwing stuff up on the wall. And of course, still, they have to do the due diligence. That's not, doesn't just vanish. But at least you're doing this in parallel. You do the due diligence while you run your prototypes, while you work. In this case, the entity in Thailand was the legal entity in charge of the whole process. So the good news is, if you're a startup, you actually have an advantage because you have the culture of trying things and talking to people, whereas corporates, a lot of corporates are actively investing to learn this. So being a startup is a real advantage here if you also think like a startup and not do a 2-year business plan evaluation because the market will be different when you actually go there.
All right. I hope that this was a good advice to startup founders, if there are some of you some founders here in this room. I think I want to also take one question from the audience. If you have a question to the panelists, yes, please.
You talked mainly about deploying business resources across borders, but in terms of funding, I realized that a lot of VCs especially either narrow in where they go via vertical and usually also geography, with inherently international or global business concepts. How do you get around those barriers in the mandate of the VCs that fund you? Or if you're a VC, how do you get around having a geography in your investment strategy?
Excuse me. So your question is the how are investors' perspectives, to select their geographies or verticals to get the deal flow to decide to invest in? That is what you're asking for? I don't know in general, but to me, we have a 24/5 portfolio companies, and roughly half of them are overseas from Japan, foreign startups, and 2 startups in Berlin, and used to be 1 startup in UK, and roughly 10 startups in the United States, and the rest of all in Tokyo. So to be honest with you, I didn't think anything about the geographies. So the reason we had an opportunity to invest in Inform here, and also the other company is called the EA, was because when I was running the old company, we were running the pitch event here in Berlin and also in London, Silicon Valley, New York, etc., etc. So that became our deal flow. So I didn't think, intentionally think to find interesting startups to invest in, but coincidentally, so we found the Inform, and we really like them, and they also like us. So that's the story. So, but there are in general, Japanese VCs are hesitate to invest in the European startups, as I explained before. So I don't talk too much.
Okay, thank.
I'd like to put the same question to Sophie on the fundraising side, because in Germany, I guess most VCs are focused on European common market.
Yeah.
You also expand.
Exactly. So I think the later stage you are, the easier it is to diversify your investor portfolio as well. And I think if you're like super early stage, investors tend to invest in their close vicinity because they have better control. And I think that completely makes sense. In our case, our investor or our shareholder group is super international. We actually just added 2 Japanese investors to our cap table. I'm gonna speak to you about this after. We have American investors from the West Coast. We have investors from Paris. We have investors from China, but we also have a lot of investors from Germany. And I think the reason why our investor group is so international so early on is because it's relevant to them, right? Because we have this global business model, and it excites them because it's digital health. And but I don't think it's like super relevant where the investors come from. Like in the end, money is money, and of course you should ask yourself if they can bring additional value to the table other than money, right? But for us, it was never a question. We never had the goal to say, oh, we wanted to have US-based investors, or we wanted to have Japanese investors, or wherever. This is how, you know, when you fundraise, you just reach out to a bunch of people, and those people make introductions to more people, and then you basically take the money from whoever wants to give it to you.
All right. So, but still the investors come from, obviously from different countries, and recently I think we see a lot of investments also coming from Asia, also in the seed stage and also later stage, from Japan, from China, also from other countries. And I would like to ask Ikuo whether there are certain things that Berliner startups should know when they speak to an investor from Japan. Is there anything that they should be careful about, or I don't know, things that they should stress especially?
Could you say that again, your question?
Yeah, my question is, what advice would you give to Berlin founders if they approach Japanese investors? How should they talk to them?
Okay, that's relatively easy to answer. If any startups are interested to get in touch with the Japanese investors, that should be the reason they are interested to expand into the Japanese market. Otherwise, as Sophie mentioned, as long as you're at the, I would say, post-middle stage, you should not get the money from the Japan or any other countries where you are not yet expand into. Meaning, if you know just the money, that's okay. But also, Sophie mentioned, you know, he or she cannot expect any other value added rather than just more than money. So in our case, it depends. I mean, depends on startups, and it depends on the verticals, depends on the geography. But even though we invest in the early stage and the seed stage, but we help them to raise the other round. That is one of the value added, even though they're not yet coming to the Japanese market. So that is our case. So my advice is, you should get money from the investors from the countries you are interested to expand into later on.
Yeah. Okay. How about Emon? When do you introduce investors from China to Berlin founders? Is there any specific advice you give them?
I think for the early stage, first, speaking from the Chinese investor side, the ticket size matters really a lot, because if you are really small seed round, it's not really suitable to approach any Chinese investor, because these are really big guys and they want to have big deals. So typically, like pre-A stage, I would say that's the minimum stage that you go for Chinese investor. Because if the deal size is too small, the whole complicity between Germany and China especially, it doesn't worth the transaction cost itself. Because like the angel round, the seed round, we have a lot of cases that we have interesting projects, which is really early stage, and they do not need like 20 million. They only need like 500K, 1 million. And if we count this like transaction cost, what we need to pay for all the lawyers from all the sides, doing all the audits, change all the contract, and then if you are a German entity, if you are a German GmbH, that's a nightmare if you want to change a lot of things in that little shop. So that's not really make sense. So this is just one example. So second thing, I think, just as the other colleagues mentioned, this market, then you need to, especially from the China side, because Chinese investor, what they are looking for is like, if I can use your technology back in the Chinese market, because there's definitely more users, it's like 1.4 billion consumers like that. So all the thing is behind, okay, do you have really like a unique technology which is not yet in the Chinese market? Can we bring your technology and to scale it up, then to grow your company to a very large, not a startup, to bring you to a unicorn in the Chinese market? So that's where the exit for the Chinese investor will come. So this mentality, if you just need a financial investor, then I think China is not really the good destination for that need. So you need to be really strategic. You need to say, okay, do I need to grow there, China and other Asian countries, and to grab that opportunity, or I just want some easy money, you know, from Asian investors, and then I can continue to grow my business here in Europe. So that won't work, I think.
Well, I hope this was useful advice for those founders in the room. Now, actually, the question I wanted to ask Sophie about the founder's perspective, you have already answered. So I want to ask Alexander, you are the anchor again, about the investment question.
Okay, so I can give you, like, make a little bit of advertisement. If you come to the Vietnamese market as a foreigner, you're much more likely to get investment, and you have a country of very young people, and there are 90 million of them. I think the average age is like 30, around 30. So this is all I'm going to say to this question. Consider Vietnam if you have an interesting product, young people, very digital, from growth perspective, on par or even above China and India currently. So if that is something you might consider, you can also approach me. I work with a lot of Vietnamese people. I do not work a lot with investors, so I'm not going to give much into the details about this question.
Okay. So is there anything that you want to comment on what Alexander said?
About the Vietnam's market?
Anything you want to comment on Alexander's?
Were you shaking your head or something? I didn't see you.
No,
okay.
I don't have any specific comments.
Okay. I think we have only 1 minute left. I'm very sorry that my time management wasn't so good, but I still want to give the audience the opportunity to ask one last question to any of the 4 panelists. Is there any last question?
Famous last words.
Yes, please.
I have a specific question about your medical application. I've had a quick look at your app or at the information your website, and as far as dental implants are concerned, you have these countries like Turkey and Hungary and so on, as we all know, where a lot of people go if they want to have a cheaper application. My question is, in how far, number one, what do you need the investment for? Is it primarily for marketing and advertising that you have so many investors? And number two, in how far are you really taking a closer look at the quality of the doctors that you recommend in Turkey and Hungary, because there are a lot of differences, as we all know.
Yeah. So this is, to your second question, the topic of quality, this is exactly why I started Qunomedical, because you can find good and bad doctors everywhere in this world. The difference is just you need to know what to look for in choosing a hospital and a doctor in order to kind of predict the quality of the facility and the service, right? And we follow a very data-driven approach. We basically built a predictive algorithm that allows us to score the doctors in the hospital in a very standardized way, globally and internationally. And in addition to that, since we own the patient experience end to end, so when a patient books through our platform, we know what the outcome is afterwards. So the patient-reported outcomes are being fed back into our database. So my goal right now is that every time you choose a doctor through Qunomedical, you're going to be better off than choosing a doctor on your own. In the future, we will hopefully be able to match your needs with a very specific doctor. And so we look at 100 different categories in order to build this algorithm. And that starts with accreditations to fields of research and case numbers. So that's one thing. So we are super, super strict on that. What do we need the investment for? Basically growth. What's growth? Growth is technology. Is marketing, so market expansion, and number 3, which comes with that, is basically staff. We don't own goods, we don't have warehouses, so basically our cost structure is people, technology, and marketing.
Okay, thank you. So with this, I would like to thank you all for coming to our session. And last, I would like to say thank you to all our panelists, Ikuo, Sophie, Emon, and Alexander. Thank you very much. Please give all the panelists a big round of applause. Thank you.